The picket signs clashed violently against the chain-link fence surrounding the newly painted building on Elm Street in Evergreen, Colorado. "This isn't a place for sin, it's a trap," one protester yelled as cameras flashed from local news vans. Willa Hargrove gripped the windowsill inside the Haven Center, her heart pounding not just from the noise outside, but from the woman standing quietly beside her, Blakely Monroe, the only person who knew exactly why this moment felt like both victory and impending doom. It had all started 6 months ago when Willa, now 35, and running a small marketing firm, had reached out to Blakely after years of silence. "We need this," she had said over coffee, her voice cracking. "A place where women like us can actually feel safe, not judged." Blakely, with her long blonde hair tied back in a practical ponytail, and those piercing blue eyes that still cut through Willa like they did in college, had agreed reluctantly. Together they poured their savings into renovating the old warehouse into a support hub, counseling rooms, a communal lounge, a resource library, all for lesbian women navigating life storms. But the town wasn't having it. Evergreen prided itself on family values, and the local paper had run headlines like "Controversial Center Opens Doors to Division." Protesters from nearby churches showed up before the ribbon was even cut. Willa forced a smile for the handful of supporters inside, mostly young women who had driven from Denver. But her mind drifted back 15 years. Back then, the University of Colorado campus had buzzed with possibility. Willa, a freshman from a strict evangelical family in rural Kansas, met Blakely in a literature class. Blakely was out and proud, volunteering at the campus LGBT group. Their first conversation over shared notes turned into late-night study sessions, then stolen kisses under the stadium lights. "I never felt this way before," Willa had whispered one night, her head on Blakely's shoulder as they lay on a blanket in the quad. Blakely's laugh was soft, reassuring. "Me neither. But we don't have to hide it forever." For a year it was perfect. Secret dates, whispered promises. Willa ignored the gnawing fear whenever her parents called asking about nice boys back home. But then came Thanksgiving break. Her mother found a hidden photo in Willa's bag, Blakely and her at a campus event, arms linked. The confrontation that followed shattered everything. "This is the devil's work, Willa," her father thundered over the phone. "We raised you better. End it or don't come home." Her mother cried for days, sending Bible verses daily. Willa panicked. She loved Blakely, but the thought of losing her family, her faith community, it was too much. One rainy afternoon in the dorm, Willa broke it off. "I can't do this anymore," she said, tears streaming as Blakely reached for her. "My family, they won't accept it. I have to try to be normal." Blakely's face crumpled. "Normal? This is who we are, Willa. Don't throw us away." But Willa walked out, blocking her number and never looking back. She transferred schools the next semester, dated a few men her parents approved of, even got engaged once, only to call it off when the emptiness became unbearable. Blakely's name became a wound she never let heal. Now standing in the finished center, Willa shook the memory away. Blakely touched her arm gently. "You okay? The crowd out there is getting louder." Willa nodded, forcing confidence. "We knew this would happen. But we're doing the right thing." Outside, the chants grew, "Go home, sinners." A reporter shoved a microphone toward the fence, yelling questions about morality. Inside, a young woman named Sarah, who had just come out to her parents, wiped her eyes. "Thank you for this place. I didn't know where else to go." Willa hugged her, feeling the weight of every choice that led here. The center was open, but the real fight was just beginning. Little did they know a scandal brewing across town would soon turn their ridiculed space into the only sanctuary left in Evergreen. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of paperwork and quiet support sessions. Blakely handled intake forms with calm efficiency, while Willa fielded calls from skeptical donors. By evening, the protesters had thinned, but the local news ran a segment calling the center divisive. Willa watched it on her phone, stomach twisting. Blakely switched it off. "Ignore them. We built this for women who need it, not for the ones screaming outside." Their eyes met, and for a second the years melted away. But Willa pulled back, the guilt still fresh. She had denied their love once. Could she really stand beside Blakely now, without the past tearing them apart again? As night fell, the center quieted. Willa locked the doors alone, replaying that college breakup in her head. She had chosen family over truth, and the wound had never closed. Blakely waited in the parking lot, offering a ride home. "You don't have to do everything by yourself anymore," she said softly. Willa climbed in the car, the silence between them heavy with unspoken history. Tomorrow would bring more protests, more judgment. But tonight the center stood as a small light in the darkness, a promise they both hoped would hold. The next morning the backlash intensified. Local radio hosts debated the center's agenda on air, while social media exploded with hashtags calling for boycotts. Willa arrived early to find spray paint on the sidewall reading "Repent." She scrubbed it off alone, her hands shaking not from cold but from the echo of her father's voice 15 years earlier. Blakely showed up with coffee and a determined smile. "We expected this. Remember, our planned community outreach starts today." They spent the morning hanging flyers at coffee shops and the library, offering free counseling sessions for women struggling with identity, family rejection, or isolation. By afternoon, 3 new visitors arrived, each carrying stories that mirrored Willa's buried pain. A teacher in her 40s whispered about hiding her marriage to another woman for fear of losing her job. A college student fresh from a family ultimatum cried through her first session. Blakely led the group circle with quiet strength while Willa listened, feeling every word like a mirror to her own past. During a break, Blakely pulled her aside. "You're quiet today." Flashbacks. Willa nodded, unable to lie. "Opening this place, it's stirring everything up. I keep seeing that dorm room the way I left you." Blakely's eyes softened, but pain flickered there too. "We both moved on. Or tried to." The conversation hung unfinished as more protesters gathered outside. A local pastor led them, now quoting scripture through a bullhorn. Willa stepped to the window, watching the crowd, and suddenly the memory flooded back unbidden. After the breakup, she had gone home for Christmas pretending everything was fine. Her parents hugged her, praised her for choosing right. But alone in her childhood bedroom, she had stared at old photos of Blakely, hidden in a shoebox, and cried until dawn. She tried dating men, joined the church youth group, even considered seminary to drown the truth. Nothing worked. The emptiness grew until she moved to Colorado for college again, hoping distance would heal her. It never did. Back in the present, a reporter knocked on the door demanding an interview. Willa refused politely, but the questions lingered. How can 2 women with questionable pasts run a place like this? The wording stung. Blakely overheard and her jaw tightened. "They don't know us. They don't know what we survived." That evening after closing, they sat in the lounge sharing takeout. Blakely opened up about her own years after the breakup, moving to Seattle, working at a women's shelter, dating casually, but never fully trusting again. "I thought about you every time I helped someone leave a toxic family," she admitted. Willa felt the guilt rise like bile. "I was cruel. I chose fear over you." Blakely reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "We were kids. But this center, it's our second chance to help others not repeat our mistakes." The night ended with a call from Willa's mother back in Kansas. "I saw the news, honey. That place you're running, it's against everything we taught you. Come home before you ruin your life again." Willa hung up, shaking. Blakely didn't ask, but the look in her eyes said she understood. The past was no longer buried. It was pressing against every wall of the center they had built. The following days blurred into meetings with city officials who hinted at zoning issues and anonymous threats on the center's voicemail. Willa threw herself into the work, organizing a support group for young lesbians facing homelessness. Blakely handled the legal paperwork, fighting off attempts to shut them down. Their partnership felt both natural and fragile, like walking a tightrope over the chasm of what Willa had destroyed years ago. One night after a particularly rough protest, Blakely stayed late, helping Willa clean up broken glass from a thrown bottle. "Why did you really call me 6 months ago?" she asked quietly. Willa paused, her sponge dripping. "Because I never stopped loving you. And I thought maybe this work could make up for how I hurt you." The confession hung in the air, raw and honest. Blakely didn't reply right away, but the small smile she gave carried the first hint of forgiveness Willa had seen in 15 years. Yet the town's resistance only grew. Church buses arrived daily, and the local paper ran an op-ed questioning the center's funding. Willa lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, the weight of every choice pressing down. The center was alive with purpose, but the secrets she carried threatened to burn it all down. Little did she know the city was about to hand them a crisis that would change everything. The scandal broke on a Tuesday morning like a bomb in the middle of Evergreen's quiet streets. Willa was midway through a counseling session when her phone lit up with alerts. The mayor's chief of staff had been arrested for covering up a hate crime against a lesbian couple 2 years earlier. Evidence showed he had pressured police to bury reports while publicly campaigning against special rights for the LGBT community. News crews swarmed City Hall, and suddenly the same voices that had mocked the Haven Center fell silent. By noon, the center's phone rang nonstop, women seeking safety after the story triggered old traumas across town. Blakely fielded calls while Willa watched the live press conference. The mayor himself looked pale, admitting the betrayal of public trust. "We failed our citizens," he said, voice cracking. Within hours, donations poured in, strangers dropped off supplies, and the very protesters who had screamed outside now stood awkwardly at the fence, some offering apologies. The center transformed overnight from ridiculed experiment to lifeline. Beds were added in the lounge for women fleeing unsafe homes. Support groups doubled. Willa felt the shift in the air, a strange mix of vindication and exhaustion. But the scandal dredged up more than city hypocrisy. During an afternoon interview, a reporter asked pointedly about Willa's background. "Sources say you yourself walked away from a same-sex relationship years ago under family pressure. How does that qualify you to run this place?" The question hit like a slap. Willa froze, the camera rolling. Blakely stepped in, smoothly redirecting, but the damage was done. By evening, the story trended locally. Center founders' past betrayal exposed. Old college acquaintances resurfaced online, sharing details of the breakup. Willa's guilt that she had buried for years exploded into public view. That night, the center buzzed with new arrivals, 20 women seeking refuge after the scandal stirred community rage. Blakely organized cots and meals while Willa retreated to the office, replaying the reporter's words. The flashback came hard and fast. After leaving Blakely, she had tried to erase her by throwing herself into church activities back home. Her parents celebrated the change, parading her at potlucks. But late nights she would drive to the edge of town and cry, remembering Blakely's touch, the way her laugh filled empty rooms. She dated a youth pastor her mother approved of, but every kiss felt like betrayal to her true self. When the engagement ended, her family blamed demons. She fled to Colorado again, this time for good, carrying the secret like a scar. Blakely found her in the office. "You don't have to explain yourself to them." Willa looked up, eyes wet. "But they're right. I denied who I was. I hurt you. How can I lead anyone when I ran from my own truth?" Blakely sat beside her. "Because you came back. You built this. That matters more than the past." Their conversation stretched late as new residents shared stories of similar family rejections. One woman, a mother of two who had hidden her orientation for decades, said, "Seeing you two together gives me hope." Willa felt the words land like grace she didn't deserve. The next 48 hours brought chaos and purpose. City officials who once threatened closure now offered grants. The center housed 50 women by week's end. Willa and Blakely worked side by side, exhaustion mixing with quiet pride. Yet the exposure of Willa's past lingered. Protesters returned, this time with signs targeting her personally. "Hypocrite." Family members called daily, her sister leaving voicemails. "Mom's heartbroken all over again." Willa confronted the mirror every morning, seeing not just the leader but the girl who had chosen fear. The scandal had saved the center, but it forced her to face the one secret she hoped would stay buried forever. Through it all, Blakely remained steady. Late one night, after tucking in a frightened teenager, she turned to Willa. "The city needed this wake-up call. And maybe we did too." Their hands brushed and the old spark flickered stronger than before. The center was no longer just a building, it was a movement. But Willa knew the hardest confrontations were still coming. Public scrutiny intensified as the scandal's ripples spread. National outlets picked up the story, framing the Haven Center as the unlikely hero of Evergreen's reckoning. Donations flooded in, but so did demands for accountability. A community forum was scheduled at City Hall and Willa was asked to speak. The night before, she paced the center's lounge, replaying every moment of her denial. Blakely watched from the doorway. "You can tell the truth up there. Or you can keep hiding." Willa stopped. "Telling the truth means admitting I abandoned you. That I let fear win." The forum packed the auditorium. Cameras rolled as Willa stepped to the podium. 15 years ago, I chose my family's approval over the woman I loved. I broke her heart and my own. I thought it would make me safe, but it only made me empty." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Blakely sat in the front row, eyes steady. Willa continued, "This center exists because I finally stopped running. Every woman here carries similar pain. We're not hypocrites, we're survivors." Applause mixed with murmurs. A local activist challenged her actions speak louder. How do we know you won't abandon this too? Willa met Blakely's gaze. Because I won't make that mistake again. Afterward, reporters swarmed. Willa's phone buzzed with her mother's number. She answered outside the hall. How could you air our family business like that? Her mother demanded, voice trembling. Willa's reply was calm but firm. Because silence nearly destroyed me, Mom. And it hurts others every day. The call ended in tears on both ends. Blakely waited nearby. You did good. They walked back to the center in silence, the night air cool with possibility. Inside, the center had grown to shelter over 100 women. Stories poured out nightly of families disowning daughters, of workplaces firing partners, of churches turning backs. Willa led a group session where she shared more of her past, the years of failed relationships, the therapy she finally sought at 30. I thought denying my love would protect me, she told them. It only isolated me. Women nodded, some reaching for tissues. Blakely added her perspective. Forgiveness isn't instant, but it's possible. Their eyes met across the circle and something shifted, a quiet understanding. Yet not everyone was ready to forgive. An anonymous letter arrived at the center detailing Willa's college breakup with screenshots of old texts. It circulated online, reigniting judgment. Protesters returned, smaller but louder. Willa's sister flew in unannounced, confronting her at the center. You embarrassed us all. Dad won't even speak your name. The argument spilled into the parking lot, voices rising. Blakely stepped between them. This isn't helping anyone. Willa's sister left in tears, but the confrontation left Willa raw. That night she broke down in Blakely's arms for the first time in years. I don't deserve this second chance. Blakely held her tight. None of us do. But we take it anyway. The center continued its work, becoming the hub for citywide support groups. City leaders visited, offering partnerships. The scandal had forced Evergreen to confront its hypocrisy, and the Haven Center stood as proof of resilience. Willa felt the weight lifting, slowly replaced by purpose. Yet the moral dilemmas lingered. Could she truly lead while her own past betrayal still haunted the woman beside her? Blakely never pressed, but the question hung between every shared glance, every late-night planning session. As weeks passed, new layers emerged. A former classmate reached out, apologizing for spreading rumors years ago. Willa accepted with grace, realizing redemption wasn't a single moment, but a daily choice. The center hosted its first community picnic, open to all. Families came, some hesitant, others embracing the change. Willa and Blakely stood side by side, watching children play and women laugh freely. The past had been exposed, but instead of destroying them, it had forged something stronger. Confrontations peaked in the following month. Willa's father finally called after months of silence. Your mother's sick over this. The church is praying for you to repent. Willa listened, tears falling. I love you, Dad. But I love myself too now. And I love Blakely. The line went dead. She sat on the center steps, head in hands, until Blakely found her. Family wounds cut deepest, Blakely said, sitting beside her. But you're healing others because of them. They talked until dawn, mapping out expansion plans, turning pain into progress. Meanwhile, internal doubts surfaced. Some residents questioned Willa's leadership after the exposure. How can she guide us through family rejection when she ran from hers? Whispered in corners. Willa overheard one night and called an all-center meeting. I was wrong 15 years ago. I chose fear. But every day here I choose courage. If you need someone perfect, go elsewhere. If you need someone real, stay. The room stayed silent, then applause started, slow and grew. Blakely smiled from the back, pride shining in her eyes. The city scandal evolved too. Trials began and victims spoke publicly, crediting the center for their strength. Willa testified about the broader impact of denial and judgment. Cameras captured her steady voice. I denied my love once and it nearly broke me. Never again. Afterward, Blakely met her outside the courthouse, pulling her into a quiet embrace. I'm proud of you. The moment lingered, charged with years of unspoken feelings. No words were needed yet. Yet guilt still clawed at Willa during quiet hours. She replayed the breakup, the cruel finality of her words. One afternoon she found Blakely alone in the lounge. I need to say this properly. I'm sorry for the way I left you. For making you feel disposable. You deserved better. Blakely's eyes welled. I forgave you a long time ago. But hearing it now, it means everything. They stood close, foreheads touching, the world outside fading. The romantic spark that had survived betrayal flickered back to life, gentle and true. Protests dwindled to occasional lone voices. The center now housed over 200 women with satellite locations planned. Willa's family sent a tentative card, her mother writing, "We're trying to understand." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a crack in the wall. Willa showed it to Blakely, who hugged her. "See? Change happens." Their days filled with hope, planning workshops, teaching self-advocacy, and hosting speakers from across the country. One evening after a successful fundraiser, they walked the quiet streets. Blakely took Willa's hand openly for the first time in public. "We built more than a center. We built us again." Willa squeezed back, the guilt finally loosening its grip. The scandal that had once threatened everything had instead illuminated their path. Yet Willa knew the journey wasn't over. True awakening came with ongoing work, not a single victory. The center's first anniversary arrived with celebration and reflection. Ribbons cut anew, this time by city leaders who once opposed them. Women who had arrived broken now stood strong, sharing testimonies. Willa spoke last, her voice steady. "A year ago we were mocked. Then a scandal showed the world what real community looks like. But the real change happened inside each of us." Blakely stood beside her, hand brushing hers. The crowd cheered as confetti fell. In private moments, the past surfaced, less like a wound and more like a lesson. Willa visited her parents in Kansas, bringing Blakely along. The dinner was awkward but civil, her father shaking Blakely's hand. "We don't understand everything, but we see how happy you are." It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. On the drive home, Blakely leaned her head on Willa's shoulder. "You faced them. For us." Willa smiled, the redemption she had fought for finally settling in her chest. The center continued thriving, housing hundreds, providing counseling, and becoming a model for similar spaces nationwide. Willa and Blakely moved in together quietly, their love no longer hidden. Late nights they planned expansions, laughing over coffee the way they had in college. The moral conflicts, guilt and judgment had tested them but ultimately strengthened their bond. Willa no longer carried the weight alone. She had awakened to the truth that love denied only returns stronger when chosen freely. As the sun set over Evergreen one evening, they stood on the center's roof watching the city lights. "We did it," Willa whispered. Blakely kissed her temple. "We're just getting started." The scandal, the ridicule, the painful past all led here, a sanctuary not just for others but for themselves. True or false? Denying your true self to appease family pressure can ever be fully redeemed without facing every consequence head-on?